Live from the Dolby Theater at Hollywood and Highland, it's the Oscars. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome your host, Jonathan Paula.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Hello and welcome to the 90th Annual Academy Awards. 10 more of these things and everyone gets a free small popcorn. This year's crop of nominees is loaded with predictably safe period dramas and unique romance films that a majority of the country hasn't even heard of. But hey, at least the Academy did nominate a film by a black director, so we're making progress, right? Anyway, here are tonight's nominees for Best Picture. Sex with a Peach. Gary Oldman wears a fat suit. World War IMAX. White people are scary. Saoirse actually does a pretty convincing American accent in this. Daniel Day-Lewis is an asshole. Journalism tropes, the movie. The Mute and the Merman. Don't upset the Fargo lady. And the Oscar goes to... This is movie night! I'm sorry, it's Moonlight. Actually, Moonlight won. Guys, you earned it. Moonlight, I'm sorry, best picture. Whew, that's embarrassing. Hello and welcome to the 8th Annual Movie Night Oscar Special. I'm your host, Jonathan Paula. Tonight I'll be reviewing all 9 Best Picture nominees, and later sharing my predictions for which actors and films will take home a trophy during the 90th Annual Academy Awards, which are live this Sunday night on ABC. As always, if you enjoy my content, please like this video, share it on social media, or pledge a couple dollars to me on Patreon. It really does make a difference, especially since my wife and I just welcomed our daughter into the world. To help keep things brief, my reviews tonight will be shorter than usual, but will begin in alphabetical order with Call Me By Your Name. Tender, if incomplete, this coming-of-age dramatic romance film by director Luca Guadagnino quickly became a critical darling after its January 2017 premiere at the Sundance Film Festival. In the Italian countryside during the 1980s, a romance blossoms between a teenage boy and an older man. Best Actor nominee Timothée Chalamet is positively transfixing as a sexually confused 17-year-old who finds love with his older male roommate, played by the increasingly versatile Armie Hammer. When their bond finally matures into an acknowledged love, the results are magical and endearing. But the 132-minute script spends a bit too much time getting there, and even then, their sudden physical intimacy seems to come out of nowhere, as there was nothing but platonic behavior beforehand. Indeed, the picture definitely feels like it's missing a key scene in the second act where the boys fall for one another, some outward singular moment where they both finally realize their shared intentions. And while I appreciate the complexities and nuances of a good love story, I found myself unable to relate to the protagonists or their relationship. Perhaps that's because the source novel by Andre Ackerman fails to provide our lovers any tangible obstacles, something conspicuously absent from a story about forbidden love. Or perhaps it's because my sheltered cis-male lifestyle precludes me from truly connecting with a homosexual romance. But I'd contend even the most isolated and bigoted of viewers can be moved if the script is strong enough. And despite the film's Best Adapted Screenplay Oscar nomination, I don't think it is. But a monologue laid in the picture by prolific supporting actor Michael Stuhlbarg makes the entire slow burn worth it. His passionate and deeply considerate speech about finding pleasure in the grief of lost love resonates deeper and stronger than any other moment in 2017 cinema. A meaningful film with complex characters, Call Me By Your Name overcomes early stumbles with poignant performances and heartfelt messages. I thought it was a cool movie. Our second picture tonight is Darkest Hour. Directed by Joe Wright, this 2017 British war drama scored more than $100 million in profit above its $30 million budget, and 6 Oscar nominations. The 2-hour and 5-minute movie focuses on the newly appointed Prime Minister of England, Winston Churchill, as he deals with the early days of World War II, with the fate of Western Europe hanging in the balance. In a long career of outstanding character work, memorable supporting roles, and vicious villains, Oldman's turn as Churchill during his first month in office, May of 1940, is easily his magnum opus. Layered in prosthetic makeup and speaking with a heavy accent, Gary is nearly unrecognizable as the wartime PM. If this role doesn't finally score him a much-deserved Oscar, nothing will. And while the magnificence of his talent cannot be understated, one exemplary performance does not a good movie make. Dealing with the behind-the-scenes politics regarding the evacuation of the British forces on Dunkirk beach, Darkest Hour makes for a marvelous companion film to Christopher Nolan's picture on the same subject, released just months prior. Whereas Dunkirk dealt with the emotional side, leaving much of historical exposition out of the narrative, this film does the opposite, giving us a rather cold and detached view of the war zone struggles. They complement each other so well that separately the movies actually feel incomplete once you've seen both. It's this lack of emotional perspective that hobbles Darkest Hour the most. We do see some glimpses though, like when Churchill defends his no-surrender policy by angrily shouting,
"You cannot reason with a tiger! when your head is in its mouth!
Later, an impromptu subway ride with Londoners helps him work through his difficult decision in an excellent scene that's easily the film's most affecting. Besides these flashes of empathy, the entire PG-13 rated picture is little more than a display of Oldman's impressive acting prowess. As interesting as it is, most audiences might be better served by a documentary on the war instead. Oldman's brilliant performance propels Darkest Hour above its narrowly focused script to become a cool film. Tonight's next movie is especially apropos, Dunkirk, so here's a short version of my earlier review. Nolan has done it again. Produced on a comparatively small budget of $100 million, this PG-13 rated war epic scored over $500 million in ticket sales after its July 21, 2017 release. Sharing the inspiring true story of the Allies' rescue from Dunkirk Beach during the Second World War, this 106-minute drama unfolds without much dialogue or even conventional protagonists. Instead, the extremely lean script illustrates through action and visuals alone how harrowing and dangerous the battlefields in the land, sea, and air really were. The ensemble cast features understated but powerful performances from a slew of familiar faces, but their lack of development prevents any from being memorable or unique. Nolan's blank canvas approach to the characters allows the audience to more easily picture themselves in their shoes, however, and it's this that creates an emotional transference that is vital to the success of the narrative. Dunkirk is an immersive experience that's bolstered by an extremely loud and visceral Oscar-nominated sound mix. From piercing gunfire to the terrifying sound of the Jericho trompet sirens, it's unforgiving with its dynamic range. Meanwhile, Hans Zimmer doles out an aggressively intense score that builds and builds to a seemingly never-ending crescendo, constantly keeping the tension on edge. But it does tend to be overbearing and distracting at times. Visually, Nolan makes excellent use of the massive 70mm IMAX frame, capturing the hauntingly beautiful aerial battles and beachside retreat in stunning detail. Couple that clarity with impressive practical effects and you've got what are easily the greatest dogfighting sequences ever shot on film. Dunkirk inventively intercuts its narrative threads in a non-parallel way, which although initially confusing does allow for additional insight. It's a brave editing decision not usually found in summer action films, and one that scored the movie one of its 8 Academy Award nominations. Nolan may not be cinema's smartest filmmaker, but of the directors I'd consider smart, he's certainly the most accessible, and that counts for a lot. Even without more historical insight or traditional character development, there's no denying Dunkirk is an epic war movie and a monumental achievement in blockbuster filmmaking. Truly an amazing film. And now another recycled review, this time for Get Out. This fantastically inventive and provocative psychological horror film was released nationwide on February 24, 2017. The very modestly budgeted $4.5 million production broke an impressive $250 million in ticket sales. The increasingly rare February release to be nominated for Best Picture, this truly is an auspicious beginning for first-time director Jordan Peele. The former Comedy Central funny man also scored Best Screenplay and Director nominations, making him only the third person in history to grab all 3 distinctions for a debut film. When a young African-American man visits his Caucasian girlfriend's mysterious family estate, not everything is as picture-perfect as it seems. Inherently an allegory for today's more suppressed form of racism, Get Out delivers this important social message through the lens of a purely haunting and downright frightening narrative. Daniel Kaluuya is outstanding at anchoring the bizarre R-rated story. The gorgeous Allison Williams pulls off duality with her character with surprising ease, while the always versatile Bradley Whitford is suspiciously disarming as the wholesome father figure. There was a very real part of me that wanted this story to conclude without any major twist. It would have been far funnier, but less scary, if all the terrifying circumstances and perceived racism really was just in Kaluuya's paranoid head. Thankfully, the script takes the movie to unimagined depths that are best explored unspoiled. I'll only say that this film's most powerful accomplishment arrives moments before the credits roll, when it appears everything our hero struggled for was for naught. Through expert direction, a subtle setup earlier, and the underlying racism our society tries to ignore every day, this singular moment lands with pure chills. For the briefest of moments, all of white America was able to understand, or at least relate to, the fear our African American brothers experience every day. Although it was a little heavy-handed with a Microsoft product placement, this 104-minute thriller delivered a wholly unique and captivating experience. Invocative commentary and visceral scares from a visionary talent make Get Out a truly amazing film. Fifth tonight, Lady Bird. A movie as unfocused as it is endearing. This R-rated feature from director Greta Gerwig earned 5 times its $10 million budget following its fall release in 2017. Employing a particularly convincing American accent, Irish beauty Saoirse Ronan leads the talented cast as the headstrong title character, a teenage girl in early 2000s America. Although there's no clear narrative to this 93-minute dramedy, the emotional core is certainly Lady Bird's contentious relationship with her mother, played by Laurie Metcalf in a heartbreakingly realized turn. Reassuring her daughter, she remarks, "I want you to be the very best version of yourself," to which Ronan questions with some resignation,
"What if this is the best version?"
Predictably, both ladies received well-deserved Oscar nominations for their excellent work. Besides these two strong performances and a general sense of relatable teenage angst, Lady Bird suffers from a bit of an identity crisis. It isn't sure if it wants to be a coming-of-age romance, the story of a family's financial hardship, or the difficulties of a mother-daughter relationship. All the individual moments work well, but it's this lack of focus that stilted the film's effectiveness. Inherently, this aimlessness draws comparisons to the John Hughes films of the 1980s, for better and worse. Most audiences should really enjoy this one though, especially if you came of age during the early 2000s like I did. This oft-overlooked time period isn't necessarily integral to the plot, but it does make for a quaint backdrop. Although I adored the layered characters, laid-back tone, and realistic dialogue, this isn't necessarily a film I'd be interested in rewatching. Lady Bird is a perfectly delightful and occasionally insightful film, even if it isn't quite memorable. I thought it was great. Next up, my thoughts on Phantom Thread. Self-indulgent. Released on Christmas Day 2017, this romantic period drama, written and directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, should end its box office run at about break-even with its $35 million budget. In 1950s London, a renowned dressmaker takes in a young, strong-willed woman as his muse and lover. Okay, I'm gonna level with you. I did not care for this movie at all. While I try to approach every film objectively, it's hard to do that when I'm watching the antithesis of everything I find enjoyable. A pretentious exercise in art for the sake of art, layered with so-called subtlety and deliberately showy performances. Plus, the characters are irritable, the story unrewarding, and the pacing painfully slow. Everything about this R-rated production seems to be in love with itself, much like its main character, played by three-time Oscar winner Daniel Day-Lewis in what is supposedly his final film role. In a distinguished, if sparse career of transformative performances, this anal retentive tailor honestly doesn't match up. Day-Lewis mostly just acts like a complete and utter asshole for the duration of the 130-minute picture. There's no redeeming qualities to his personality, no progression or arc to his stubborn attitudes. The character is only fascinating in how frustratingly rude he is. Opposite as his live-in girlfriend is Vicky Krieps, who does a fine job with the material, I guess? Similarly to DDL's character, I'm not actually certain we're supposed to be rooting for her. A character who willingly submits herself to verbal and behavioral abuse on a regular basis. And then there's Leslie Manville as the weirdly territorial sister, hovering over the relationship like a scorned ex. In the absence of a compelling narrative, the interplay between this trio is the only thing that keeps the picture somewhat watchable, even if no one in the movie behaves like an actual human being. If you enjoy slow and moody, performance-driven films, Johnny Greenwood's Oscar-nominated score is almost entirely piano, you'll undoubtedly have a better time than I did. But like most of PTA's catalog, I left more annoyed than captivated. Phantom Thread is a detrimentally artsy film with unlikable characters. I thought it was meh. From one disappointment to another, here's the post. Underwhelming. This 116-minute biographical drama by director Steven Spielberg shares the real-life story of the Washington Post's battle against the US government to expose a decades-long scandal involving the Vietnam War. The R-rated film was well on its way to tripling its $50 million budget 2 months after its December 2017 release. Unless you lived through this tumultuous time period in history, I fear most audiences won't truly appreciate the scope or importance of this film's story, as the script fails to adequately explain why the Pentagon Papers were so significant to the future of American journalism and politics. Spielberg's mobile filmmaking style is always moving, with the Steadicam hovering behind people at waist height as they briskly walk down corridors. It's the most kinetic film the acclaimed filmmaker has ever done. The ensemble cast is led by Tom Hanks and Meryl Streep as the Post's editor and publisher, respectively. Predictably, both veteran actors add yet another Oscar nomination to their resume, with dependably excellent performances here. A sequence where Hanks' intrepid team of reporters furiously pore over stacks and stacks of paper in search of headline stories is the film's most effective moment. Hanks is warned that publishing could lead to a conviction, and the Washington Post would cease to exist. He immediately fires back.
We live in a world where the government can tell us what we can and cannot print, and the Washington Post, as we know it, has already ceased to exist.
This fierce line of defiance perfectly encapsulates the tone and energy of the film. Serving as a perfect mirror of today's socio-political landscape, this movie is the one America needs right now. I only wish the entire film was as engaging as this scene, because unfortunately it's surrounded by forgettable moments and tired journalism tropes that we've seen a dozen times before in a dozen better films. And given the immense level of talent in front of and behind the camera, The Post is a bland misfire and a criminally forgettable disappointment. Still, I thought it was a good picture. Our penultimate film tonight is The Shape of Water. Resonating. Following its premiere at the Venice International Film Festival, this Guillermo del Toro picture earned almost $100 million more than its $20 million budget, leading the 2017 Oscar contenders with an impressive 13 nominations, including Best Picture. The original script, also penned by Del Toro, shares the fascinating story of a mute janitor who falls in love with a mysterious amphibious creature at a research facility in the 1960s. The romance fantasy drama is anchored by Sally Hawkins in the Oscar-nominated lead role. Communicating almost entirely via sign language, it is astounding how versatile and effortless she makes everything look, bringing to life a vulnerable and empathetic character you'll love to watch succeed. Michael Shannon, Richard Jenkins, Octavia Spencer, and Michael Stuhlbarg, appearing in a record-tying third Best Picture nominee, all provide equally excellent performances as well. Jenkins is magnificent as the tender and reclusive friend, whereas Shannon predictably frightens as the dastardly villain. Del Toro approaches the unique subject matter with such heartfelt sincerity, it's easy to overlook the fact that you're basically watching a serious, gender-flipped version of Splash. As unconventional as it may seem, The Shape of Water really is a story about unconditional love and finding friends among the shadows. Hawkins describes her relationship with the amphibian by signing, "He sees me for what I am, as I am." Everything in this movie is beautiful, moving, and even inspiring, but of particular note is the musical score, my favorite of the year. Alexandre Desplat expertly blends accordions, woodwinds, and flutes for a whimsical and romantic sound. Resembling the best bits from Up and Super Mario Galaxy, this is the perfect backdrop to the film's sci-fi events. The impeccable set designs, costumes, and visual effects all assure total immersion in the R-rated fairy tale. A rare film that blends originality with time-tested romance, The Shape of Water is a fantastic fantasy, worth exploring again and again. I thought it was awesome. And last but not least, here's my review of the 9th Best Picture nominee, 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri. Challenging enjoyment. This crime drama from writer and director Martin McDonagh scored 10 times its $12 million budget following its November release in 2017. A headstrong mother rents the titular advertising space to challenge local authorities for failing to solve her daughter's unsolved murder. The 115-minute narrative has plenty of turns, developments, and surprises along the way, thanks to a brilliantly witty and briskly paced screenplay that netted 3 Billboards one of its 7 Oscar nominations. The R-rated script is loaded with quirky characters and snappy dialogue, delivered by veteran actors Frances McDormand, Sam Rockwell, and Woody Harrelson. McDormand is captivating as the angry mother, commanding your attention with quiet rage and stubborn determination. Facing a bleak and hopeless existence, her quest for justice is her singular goal, and her pitch-perfect performance should net her another Academy Award. Confronting her vulgar behavior, McDormand's ex-husband, played by John Hawkes, reminds her, all this anger, man, it just begets greater anger. The characters attempt, sometimes unsuccessfully, to navigate past this anger, to form an understanding with each other. These optimistic, if often difficult desires represent the thematic bedrock of the film. Harrelson continues his trend of emotionally deep characters, while Rockwell surprises with the most substantial and meaty role in his decades-long career. What makes these characters so interesting is their amoral behavior. There are no heroes or villains in this script, just flawed individuals living in a broken world. Their flip-flopping morality complicates emotions in the final act, but in a rewarding way. By that same point, this is an actor's film. All of the technical and cinematic accomplishments take an unobtrusive backseat to the script and performances. There's nothing inherently lacking from the cinematography, music, or set design, it simply isn't important. 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri is an attention-grabbing picture loaded with complex characters and surprising moments. It's awesome. Now that you've heard my reviews on each film, here's how they all rank against each other when I expand my ratings to a 100-point scale. From a pair of 10s to a lowly 4, this is definitely one of the most diverse group of films in the 8 years I've been reviewing Oscar nominees. And now it's time to make predictions and name favorites in the top categories. An impressive group of ladies are nominated in the Best Actress category. Margot Robbie surprised and impressed me the most, but I'll pick Frances McDormand as my favorite. Her no-nonsense approach and reserved hatred fueled the heart of 3 Billboards, and if her SAG award last month is any indication, she'll likely grab her second Oscar for this performance too. I think the Academy and I are likely to agree on the Best Actor category as well, since Gary Oldman seems like a lock for his show-stealing portrayal of Winston Churchill. And even though he's only been nominated once before, given his large body of work, this definitely seems long overdue for the English actor. In the directing category, Mexican men seem to be on a bit of a hot streak in the last few years, so I predict Guillermo del Toro will grab his first Oscar. Personally though, I have to give this one to Christopher Nolan. This is an especially competitive category this year, but what he was able to accomplish in Dunkirk, sans traditional structure or protagonist, is truly remarkable. And lastly, the biggest award in all of cinema, Best Picture? With a year-best 13 Oscar nominations, it's obvious The Shape of Water is the clear frontrunner here. But the Academy has been known to surprise us before, so your guess is as good as mine. Personally though, I felt The Disaster Artist was the best film of the year, but since it wasn't even nominated, I'll go with my second favorite of 2017, Get Out, a genre-defining movie that deserves the gold trophy. I hope you're just as excited for the upcoming Oscars telecast as I am, which I'll be live tweeting from @JohnPaula as I do every year. Time and baby permitting, I'll also film my annual post-Oscars recap and highlights video that'll be posted to the John's World channel, so please subscribe there to check out the video when it's released. Well, that concludes my 8th annual Oscars special. Caring for a newborn has taken up a lot of my time, so while I can't promise the next episode will be posted anytime soon, I can't promise we'll be reviewing the Matrix trilogy when I do. So leave your reviews below if you'd like to have them included on the show. Until next time, my name is Jonathan Paula, thanks for watching, and have a good movie night.